Jaime? Susan?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Harare Conversations. The storm is over. Relief aid that took place during or after Cyclone Idai hit. I'm here today with Susan and Jaime. Welcome, ladies, and thank you again.
Thank you for having us.
May you just kindly tell us what you guys do, introduce yourselves, and then we take it from there. Over to you.
You go ahead, Jaime.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jaime. I am a volunteer that works with an organization called Vimba. We do charity work mainly around vulnerable children within Zimbabwe. Today, Valerie, we're talking about Cyclone Idai, and during Cyclone Idai, I partnered with Miracle Missions to work out of the church at Northside at Highlands Presbyterian Church. And yes, so with regard to that, I worked under Miracle Missions under Jackie Anderson, and yeah, that is an intro to who I am.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jaime. Over to you, Susan.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Susan Wyatt. I'm an occupational therapist by training, and I have specialized in trauma and mental health. So when Cyclone Idai happened, I was contracted by Vimba and Miracle Missions to be a program manager, and we did a psychosocial response, particularly with children, but also with adults in Chimanimani and the affected areas around there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Susan. You guys, or you ladies rather, you're doing an amazing job because it's not easy to deal with people who are going through psychological issues because that was very traumatic, and it's not something that anyone can get over very, very easily. So, Jaime, I have a question for you. You were saying you work with vulnerable children as well. What kind of exercises did you do, or did you give the children?
Are you talking specifically with Cyclone Idai?
Just Cyclone Idai and other programs.
Okay, so what we did was we actually worked with Susan on a psychosocial support program. I'll let her give you the explanations on that. But basically what it entailed was going out into the community with some trained companions and working with the children who had been affected by the cyclone. So there are obviously many issues that had to be taken into consideration with their mental health. I'll let Susan talk to you about the specifics of the actual program.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jaime. So when we first went in to Chimanimani area, we did a community mapping, a needs assessment, where we started to identify what was going on, what was the impact from the cyclone. So, for example, some families had been totally displaced and had lost things. They were living in temporary shelters, and they were trying to deal with the trauma from the cyclone, as well as losing their homes and being in a vulnerable situation. And from there, we then got funding to deliver some psychosocial support group programs. So we trained up what we call companions. So these were people from different backgrounds, but local to the area. And we worked with some of the local organizations. We trained them in a program that's designed by Dr. Jonathan Brackish here in Zimbabwe called Sing the Lions. And a 3-day program where the kids come together in groups of about 20 or 25. And it's experiential learning. So they're able to have fun and play, but there's a big psychoeducation component, and it's about resilience building for these children. And they go on to make little, Singing to Lions clubs that carry on after the program is finished to make sure it's sustainable as well. And parallel to that, we offered some one-on-one support. So for people that had maybe experienced multiple traumas or multiple losses, or were struggling with other complex issues, they were able to access some more trauma-focused kind of therapies and refer them into mental health networks. So this could have been more specialized support for people experiencing any kind of anxiety, grief and loss, trauma symptoms. I suppose you've got to understand in the way process, week to 3 people to experience, but if the symptoms persist for a really long time, then they might need other kind of interventions. So you wouldn't just rush in and give everybody trauma therapy straight away, because some people cope themselves. But we were there that were really struggling and get them more support earlier. And then a big component with kids is playing. So we also provided art therapy so that they could draw and play in the child-friendly spaces. We provided soccer balls, we provided toys. So getting children to come back down out of stress and trauma and come back down to emotional regulation, it's a big thing for them is playing. So getting them to be able to play again was really important. So those are the kind of activities we were doing.
And I think to add to that is actually how incredible the children were. So when we first went out, obviously it was a very different, in the immediate aftermath of the cyclone, there's obviously that very traumatic period that they've been through. But as the weeks went by and we went out, as the months went by and you go out, they actually started to become excited to see us and straight away know that, oh, now we're going to go and play some games, and they'd come out with their soccer balls and they'd run to the cars. And so what is incredible with kids is actually their resilience itself. They're absolutely amazing.
Okay, sorry. Wow, this is very interesting. Susan, you mentioned children drawing and playing. That's where I was getting at. As you know, we are in the at an art institution, and I just wanted to find out if you actually had those kind of activities of drawing and all that kind of thing. So did they also do anything to do with painting as well? Did they play with clay? What else did they do?
It was the second time we had run the trauma-informed art therapy program. The one we did at Chimani Mani was a lot more kind of loose and freely done. It was just made available because at the time it was so hard to access certain places. It took some time to be able to train people. So we just made it available as a resource. And the drawings that some of the children came out with was pretty amazing. Very clear depictions of what they saw and what they experienced, and the helicopters and the rocks and things like that, which I would be able to share with you sometime if you wanted. And yeah, so there wasn't painting as such because we couldn't necessarily get those kind of resources up there. We had a lot of donations, and Jamie probably knows more, but we had quite a few businesses in Harare just donating art and school resources for us. And so we would take them up there and make them available in the displacement centers for the kids. So they would spend time with some of our companions, not necessarily doing proper art therapy, but being able to access crayons and paper and being able to start processing everything they had seen in a safe space, and really show and express everything they'd experienced.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so on the donations, we had quite a few companies and individuals that donated particularly stationery, glues, scissors, paper, that sort of thing. And so in the aftermath of the cyclone, we've actually been involved in building classroom blocks. So we've been able to, well, we are going to be able to in the new term, because obviously of COVID, the schools have been shut down, but we're going to be able to go and give them some more art supplies now as well. So that's very exciting. Susan mentioned that the cyclone was our second art therapy program, and our first one done in Harare, we did a lot more structured art therapy with them, which from my untrained eye on the psychosocial support program was an incredible thing to see where the children started in their art and where they ended. So you could actually see the healing happening through the work that the children did.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I like the way you're saying what they saw, mountains and everything else. So it's great to know that there are people out there who are actually doing their best to be helping kids, because you know, if an adult would go through such stress and be traumatized, then what more when it comes to a kid? You know, it can't be easy, and this is very commendable. Um, so that now brings me to my next issue of the rate of suicide that's been taking place of late, and it's quite scary to know that the rate is going up every now and then. And how are you handling this? Is there a way of curbing it? Is there anything that you'd like to appeal to people to do to help these people?
I'll talk from a mental health perspective, and then I'll hand over to Jaime to talk what they're doing program-wise. I think what we need to emphasize is particularly people that are having, additional traumas. For example, with COVID now, people are very isolated and they're having economic impacts and other things that we often don't think are related to mental health, but they impact our mental health a lot. Some of the, so being able to be socially connected, even if not physically, but through your social media platforms and WhatsApp and through phone calls is really important for your mental health. So emphasizing to stay connected, physically apart, but socially connected through this time is very important. And then know the signs for people, suicide risk signs, suicide ideation, people talking about themes of hopelessness and not being able to cope, feeling, that the hardship is relentless. These are signs that people are saying, I'm really struggling. And often we shy away from talking to people about that because it's an awkward conversation. We don't know what to do or what to say. So, but actually what we need to do is step up and say, are you okay? Do you need some support? I hear you're struggling. I've been thinking about you. Do you want to catch up sometime? So step up for people when you know the signs. And then, in Zimbabwe, we do have, we have the Friendship Bench program, which has a phone call number where you can actually call someone and speak and get some support. There's a few other, there's also Connect counseling. There's probably 3 or 4 different programs that run. And so, make that phone call, particularly for children. Childline, they reported it was something like a 93% increase in their phone calls through COVID, which is great. It shows that children know, children are much better at reaching out and saying, actually, I'm a bit stressed. Can I talk to someone? Maybe I've just got a few questions, but it settles your anxiety or your stress level. So that's really important. And understanding that particularly the last 6 months have been really, they've really strained people. And so if you think about people that were in Chimanimani and got really affected are now having an extended period of time under a lot of stress. And we know that some of the rural areas have actually been affected differently to the urban areas with COVID. You know, they're more self-sustaining, so maybe they've handled things differently. But still, staying socially connected, knowing your stress levels, asking people, stepping up and asking people if they're okay, and then using those phone numbers where you can access someone that is trained in a bit of mental health and it would be able to talk you through situations is really important. Yeah. I don't know, Jamie and I had worked on another program, a child protection and psychosocial support program, and we did actually, one of the components is managing suicide and being able to talk about it. So I'll let Jamie talk about that program. It's under Vimba.
Thanks, Susan. So yes, with Vimba and Miracle Missions, we've been working with Susan on an online training program really for psychosocial support health. So obviously with COVID and everything that we're going through now, and particularly in the last few months, there has been that social isolation from connecting with people. And we felt that we wanted to reach out into further communities so that we could get to places that we may not be able to physically access, but be able to access through an online communication system. So through those training programs, we're hoping to empower the communities themselves. It's one thing having specialists that, like Susan, who a person can come and see, but it's another thing getting the access to that information right at the grassroots level. So we're looking at empowering teachers and community leaders in psychosocial support, first aid, and how to handle grief and loss. So originally, we actually had expected our numbers to be quite a lot higher on the loss side of COVID. And in anticipation of that, we worked on a grief and loss training, and which has been great to do, because whether we lose someone through the virus, through Chimani, through the cyclone, and actually at the moment through, as you say, suicide or starvation or any of the other things that could be creating mental health issues for our community, having people at grassroots levels that can look at that and say, this is what I can do to help my community. And more importantly, once they've understood that there's a level that has come that they can not handle, that they are not empowered to do, learning those referral systems. So where they can refer to Friendship Bench, where they can refer to Childline. And yeah, I think that for us, what's important is empowerment of community leaders and teaching people about the referral systems of where they can go to get help if they need it.
That's brilliant. It's quite touching. Reason why I'm saying that is like people don't really take it seriously, especially in the community. If someone saying, "No, I'm fine. No, I'm fine," you know, and do you think art
more rural communities, even if we don't have paint, like you had mentioned painting, you know, we've got local supplies that we can use to create art. And so it's about empowering again people on using materials around them, on experimenting and yeah, using what they have around them to create pieces of art that can help them with their mental health journey. So yes, I think that by empowering community leaders and teachers, we can certainly use art therapy in the communities to help with mental health.
Yeah, I think asking if art is the way forward, I think art can be one of the helpful processes. I think we've got to understand when we're talking about transcultural mental health. So I was trained in mental health, you know, in a Western model, and that doesn't always translate exactly culturally and contextually here. So we've got to think of ways where we can provide psychoeducation and material that's actually relevant to the way people talk about mental health here and access support. So art therapy is one way of doing it, and you can be creative with it. It doesn't have to be paint and paintbrushes. For example, the one activity we do called Lifelines is actually done with rocks and flowers, where we identify hardships and joy in our life. And there's a way to walk someone through that process. And that's, you know, that's kind of accessible anyway. You don't need paint for that. But other kind of processes, like we were saying, we're developing training in community-led psychosocial support. So training pastors, church leaders, community leaders, teachers in being able to identify and refer, but also maybe to hold group or peer-led processes where people can come together in groups, because maybe that's more culturally appropriate, to hold women's groups or young people's groups, or do group-based programs. So you're not necessarily doing one-on-one talk therapy, because that's quite foreign to people here, and it's quite scary, and it holds a lot of maybe stigma with it. So finding other ways to be able to access people and promote public awareness, and have, you know, youth leaders that talk about this stuff, so that we reach more people and we destigmatize it, and then make it more accessible from a cultural perspective when we're talking about mental health.
Oh, great. As an art professional, I've just been observing the artists, because I talk to some of them on WhatsApp or all different kinds of social media platforms, and you know, sometimes you can feel that a person is being cagey, you know, and so that's why I was asking if we could actually have art as one of those as a component that could assist these artists. And so that's what I wanted to find out, if we could maybe possibly work together, like you're saying, with the communities, and then we just identify a way forward, and not to stigmatize, as you put it, so that everybody feels safe and secure. That you know, sometimes you don't even realize that this is actually therapy. So it's actually good, and it's great to know that you're acknowledging art as part of that therapy. Which brings me to my next topic or question. Sometimes we are not sure of the signs. We ignore some of the signs. What are these signs or the symptoms of mental health? I just need us to talk about this, so that we can conscientize people out there, so that they're able to just to go out there and seek assistance.
Yep. I think some of the things to look out for are we call them, so your risk elements. So knowing that young men between the age of about 20 and 40 are your higher risk categories. They find it harder to access mental health. They also have more cultural pressure on them to be the breadwinner, to protect the family, to do all these other things. But they're not very good at supporting each other sometimes. So young men in that age bracket are higher risk. And then other things to look out for are people's moods. If they're very flat, low moods, very sad, feeling depressed, if they are isolating, if they're not connecting with their usual friendship groups and support systems, if they're abusing substances a lot, that's a big one, which we have a big problem with that. And it's not just alcohol and marijuana, it's prescription drugs as well, cough mixtures, painkillers, sleep medications. That's being abused a lot in Zimbabwe. And then you'll get themes of hopelessness, that, you know, things will never get better. I have no control over my life. No one would care if I died. And people will they will actually eventually give you some signs. There will be some signs that, you know, they're feeling like this. And again, often we shy away because we feel awkward about it. But actually, when we do training in suicide management, it's actually about stepping up and saying, are you okay? Have you felt so low that you would hurt yourself? Have you ever felt like giving up on life? And if you have you planned that already? And you're really trying to gauge how serious this person is. Of course, in the worst case scenario, someone isn't going to admit it, and they will follow through with their plans. But for the most part, a lot of people, if you start asking them, they'll tell you, yes, I've thought about it, but no, I would never do it. Or yes, I've thought about it, and yes, I have a plan, and this is what I would do. And then you know, I cannot actually leave this person alone. I need to support them right now, and I need to get them to a hospital or to a clinic, or I need someone to stay with them, and then you can act. But you need to know the signs and your risk categories, who is more at risk. And, you know, just generally people that start, if their behavior changes a lot, it's not usually who they are. Maybe there's a sign something's going on, and people will often communicate through behavior better than words. So their behavior will change, and there's your sign, something's going on. So step up and ask, are you okay? Can we catch up? You know, I've noticed this about you. Is everything all right? And then go from there.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Susan. Jaime, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, that's great. Thank you very much for having us. Are there any other questions you have for us?
No, not at the moment. Unless we have people in the audience. Regina, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Hello. Okay.
Sorry. I was not sitting right at the computer, and I had to run and come right and unmute myself. Hi, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you? Thank you for joining us. How's it going over there?
Good, thank you. I'm fine.
Oh, great. I just wanted to find out if there's anything you'd like to ask or contribute.
Yeah, no, I was. I really enjoy listening to it because, you know, with the organization I'm working with, we were also involved in the response in Chimanimani, and of course we met people who were obviously traumatized. And I mean, it's not our strength then to respond on this, but of course we then also engaged other organizations to help, and we offered a kind of referral system, but also not only the people directly affected, but we also observed this among our staff. I mean, for them it was also kind of traumatizing to come to Chimanimani and see what happened there, and being confronted with what people had experienced, the stories they heard. And so we had support for our psychosocial support for our staff as well, which was quite necessary. And it was very challenging.
To confirm that, yes, and we'd actually, Jaime had brought this up before the conversation, that we need to acknowledge what we call vicarious trauma or secondary trauma. When with healthcare professionals, when you're responding to a crisis or when you're in the health system, for whatever reason, you're exposed to people's trauma stories a lot, you do get affected over time, and you need, as an organization, you need structures in place, supervision, restorative debriefing, whatever it is, mental health days, management, so that you don't burn your staff out when you're dealing with this. So very much, and you know, when they did research on the Twin Towers, on the first responders and on the victims at 6 months and 12 months post the crisis, and the people with worse mental health outcomes were the first responders, because to watch someone go through trauma and not be able to help them makes it even worse. So particularly in Zimbabwe, we have we have additional issues attached to these traumas sometimes, the economic crisis, the lack of housing, the lack of water, the lack of access to food, whatever it is. When you add all of these up as a responder, it becomes quite overwhelming. So you really have to look after your own mental health, because that vicarious trauma, you basically start to display the same symptoms as PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's really important that we look after our staff, particularly first responders.
Yeah, and we did this now also with the COVID response. Also, even during the lockdown period, we were still working and implementing programs and had emergency programs for communities. But at the same time, we observed also how stressed our team was. And again, we offered, of course, the psychosocial response, different options for them, because it was, I mean, like in Chimanimani, people were maybe not personally directly affected, but now with the COVID, of course, they were scared themselves to get it and to continue working instead of being at home and locking yourself up. No, we ask them as humanitarian response now to work. And so, yeah, it was a very tricky situation for all of us. And
I think if you also look when you're in those situations where I know Susan and I have said this before, you don't actually take a break or take a rest. And so you're working extraordinarily long hours under extraordinary pressure, because you feel like if you go to sleep, something's going to happen to someone because you didn't answer your phone, or because you didn't do this, that something's going to happen to someone. And and it's your families as well. I mean, I remember one of my kids asking me for something during the cyclone time, and I said I can't, and they got really upset. And I said, if I don't, someone might die. You know, like, so you take on that serious pressure onto yourself on the importance of your time being there. But actually, if you don't give time for yourself, if you don't give time for your mental health, if you don't give time to eat and to do the normal functions of life, you will run out, and then you won't be there for the people who need you in the long term. So it's taking that balance of your life versus helping those in need.
Yeah, and absolutely. And then also being clear that this humanitarian situation is coming to an end at one point. You have to get into the more recovery and then more the long-term program again. You have to get out of this humanitarian life-saving mode as well. And this is something, yeah, I mean, I've been working in other countries in very stressful settings after the earthquakes in Nepal and after the cyclone in Myanmar and in Afghanistan and so on. So I was able to share also some of my experience from the other countries and from the risk which go along with humanitarian interventions, also with the staff, and say, guys, yeah, you really have to look after yourself and have your breaks. Take your weekends. And this is then also something for the project managers to say, look, you have to take care of your team. It's part of your job. It's a responsibility. It doesn't help anybody if we all collapse here, then there's no way then to help the people on the ground.
And one thing that we did to really try and help with that was we tried to engage a lot of the local players. So local to Chimanimani, local to Chukukwa, local to Kopa, so that we weren't carting people backwards and forwards too much, and that even after we left, those people are still trained and they can stay there, because exactly that, from the moment you actually start responding, you should be planning your exit. You know, you don't want to just drop people at the end. So to make it as sustainable as possible. And I know I spoke to our project officer who we worked with last year. I spoke to him this week, and he's actually still doing some mental health work with the local trust that we engaged with there. So that was fantastic, because people then know the referral pathways. There's still some, even if it's not paid work, he's still available in the community. And you can leave knowing that, you know, I don't have to be the savior there, actually. There's lots of people that can do this work. And sometimes it's just capacity building. You know, we went in and we trained about 100 pastors over 1 week in just psychological first aid, just explaining to them what and what not to do and how to look after themselves and how to respond appropriately. so that they then went back into their communities and they responded. You know, they're the ones with the direct contact, much more so than we are coming from Harare to go there and not knowing anybody. So that distribution of through the program and the response system is really important, so you don't burn out and you don't use all your resources then you know, to try and then save your staff later.
Yeah, I think that's so true, that capacity building, Susan, is essential, because once we building the capacity of the local people, and as you say, being able to have an exit strategy where we are not needed, where we've built the community up to help themselves, is a very important part of what we do.
What I also very liked was the what you said about using art as a therapy, and because in our WASH programs we do a lot of also role plays and songs, music, and we also observed that beside the bringing these WASH messages through songs, it was also the dancing, the singing, which really people so much enjoyed. It was it was also maybe kind of a therapy.
Yeah, that's very much, I mean, and that's, you know, that's what we do here in Zimbabwe. We dance and we sing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's tapping into those things that feel more natural and we can relate to and understand better. They're definitely really important. I have to say, I feel like I'm taking too much of the credit for the art therapy. We work with an art therapist here. Her name's Vanessa Hansel, and she's amazing. So it's, you know, Vanessa and I work together. It's a trauma-informed art therapy program, but she's incredible at, you know, I'll explain to her, we want to do an activity around grief, and we have to do this bit of psychoeducation, but this is about grief and loss. And then she builds it in with using the art medium to be able to deliver that message. So it's not just a lecture style, it's an experiential activity. And we often will say things like, you know, this isn't therapy, but it's therapeutic. So yes, it's not that I'm giving you trauma-focused therapy, but through this activity, it'll be therapeutic for you and you'll feel better afterwards.
Yeah. And Valerie, we have been talking about this also in preparation of the exhibition, to find artists from Chimanimani who maybe produced something also as a way to overcome the trauma, but because of COVID, this really did not come the way it was planned. But
not at all. Not at all. It's now that we are trying to get everyone together to get this done, because it's very essential. We had organized, or we had suggested that we have workshops for these children, art workshops. Sorry, I have to talk about art. Art is what we do. Art workshops that would help not only the kids but the adults as well, because that's, like you said, it's not therapy, it's therapeutic. I love that. And so Regina, we are working on that. We just want to see how we can maneuver and get everything sorted and in the pipeline. So I am definitely going to contact you all so that we work together on this, because there are artists out there who need help, you know, and it's something that we should look forward to, something that we should work towards. So I think that's pretty amazing, pretty amazing. We need more people like you guys. I remember at some point in my time, I used to put so much pressure on myself. It was work. It says, no, this is not the way, you know, you're supposed to be doing it. You know, this is just not on. Because after work, I'll get into bed and just sleep. During the weekends, I'll sleep, and I would turn my phone off, because I know if I'm not available on WhatsApp, people are calling. And then I think I was getting into depression mode, and it's good to have people like those who actually say, hey, what you're doing is not healthy for you. So we need people like you, and we need to conscientize um, people out there. So this is pretty amazing. I don't know if there are any closing remarks from any of you, or if there's anything you'd like to add.
I just want to assure you that, like, I participated in the Boston Trauma Research Foundation conference this year, and they had a big component on art therapy, and recognizing the value of it. And there's there's a lady, I can't pronounce her name, but it's like Kathy Malchiodi or something from America, and she has a trauma-focused art and expressive therapies manual. And just really showing that sometimes art, particularly for young people and adolescents and our risky group, actually art is easier to do than to do talk therapy. It's less confronting. I can draw things that you don't necessarily understand, but it's helping to get it out of my head onto paper. So you're starting to externalize the story. It helps to regulate you. It's more accessible than some of the talking therapies, particularly for young people that maybe don't have the life experience or the words or the vocabulary to describe what's going on. And across cultures, I know in Shona, there is no word for depression. It's, the whole expression. So art can even cross cultures in being able to access therapeutic mediums so that people can feel better. So just to absolutely encourage you that I've seen it amazing. We're actually starting another art program next weekend. So it's definitely go ahead with it. And I'm disappointed now. I've got photographs of the children's work from Chimanimani, which I could share with you, but I don't have the actual paintings anymore. But still, you can see very clearly, what they saw and what they drew. So thank you so much for having us on here. I think it's really important to talk about mental health.
No, I should be the ones thanking you. Thank you very much. Really, really appreciate it, and we appreciate you guys. So I will be in touch, definitely. It's not going to end here. And Regina, thank you for joining us. Jaime, thank you for accepting our invitation. You too, Susan. And thank you everyone else for joining us. If you're live streaming, thank you for joining us. Until next time, goodbye.
Thank you.